Once upon a time, there was a kind and gentle woman named Mrs. Adesuwa Bello. She was an old woman with soft eyes and silver hair, and she lived in a very big house with many rooms and shiny windows. She had everything she needed: pretty clothes, nice food, and a driver who took her wherever she wanted to go. But even with all this, Mrs. Adesuwa was not happy. Her heart felt empty. She had only one son, and his name was Daniel. Daniel Bello was very rich. He was one of the richest young men in the whole country. He owned a big company that made computers and phones work faster and better. Everyone knew his name. His picture was always on the news and on big billboards in the city. People called him the Tech King of Africa. Many people wanted to work for Daniel, and many women wanted to marry him. They liked how he dressed in smart suits and how he lived in a tall house with a swimming pool and many cars. But Daniel did not trust people. He thought everyone wanted his money. He did not believe in love. He did not believe anyone could love him without thinking of his big house, his private jet, or his famous name. So Daniel stayed alone. He worked all day and stayed quiet all night. He never smiled much. He never talked about getting married or having a family. This made his mother very sad. Mrs. Adesuwa remembered how happy Daniel used to be when he was small. He would laugh and run around the garden and play with toys. Now he was a man who did not trust anyone. He said love was fake and all women only wanted his money. One evening, Daniel and his mother had dinner together in the big house. They sat at a long table with candles and food. There were servants around and music was playing softly. But the room felt cold, not because of the air, but because of Daniel's heart. He ate his food quietly. Then he said something that made his mother drop her spoon. "Mom," Daniel said, "love doesn't exist. It's just a lie people tell. Every woman I've met only cares about how much I have, not who I am." Mrs. Adesuwa looked at her son. Her heart broke a little. She wanted to cry, but she didn't. She just smiled and said, maybe you haven't met the right one." Daniel shook his head and said, "There is no right one. They all come because of my name, my company, my house. I don't want a woman who wants my money. I want someone who would love me even if I had nothing. But that kind of woman doesn't exist." After dinner, Daniel went to his room. Mrs. Adesuwa sat in the quiet dining room and looked at the candlelight. She felt very sad. She thought about her husband, who had died many years ago. He had been a good man, and they had loved each other with nothing but smiles and trust. She wanted the same for her son. She wanted Daniel to feel love the way she had felt it. But how could she help him find true love? That night, Mrs. Adesuwa could not sleep. She walked around her room in her soft slippers, thinking and thinking. Then a strange idea came to her. A very big idea, a brave idea. She thought, what if I go into his company and pretend to be a cleaner? What if I dress like someone poor and quiet and see how the girls in the office treat me? Maybe then I will find one girl who is kind and true. A girl who has a good heart. A girl who will not care about money or big cars. A girl who will treat a cleaner with respect. If I find her, maybe she will be the one for Daniel. At first the idea sounded crazy, even to her. Why would an old woman like her clean floors? She had never done that before. But the more she thought about it, the more she believed it was the only way. She could not trust her son to look for love. He was too guarded, too proud. So she would look for love on his behalf. She would look in the most hidden place among people who had nothing. The next day, she called her old housemaid, a kind woman named Auntie Ngozi, who had worked for her when Daniel was a little boy. Auntie Ngozi now lived in a smaller town, but she was wise and smart. When Mrs. Adesuwa told her the plan, Auntie Ngozi laughed at first. "Madam, you, a cleaner, in your son's big company," she said. "Yes," said Mrs. Adesuwa. "I want to go where no one knows me. I want to see the truth with my own eyes." Auntie Ngozi agreed to help. She gave her old cleaning uniform, gloves, a scarf to cover her head, and showed her how to carry a mop and sweep quietly. "Don't stand too straight," she said. "Walk slowly. Speak with a small voice. Don't let anyone see the rich woman inside you." Mrs. Adesuwa nodded. She was ready. A few days later, she changed her name to Mama Grace and walked into her son's company with her bucket and mop. Nobody knew who she was. Nobody looked twice. She was just a cleaner now. No fancy clothes, no diamonds, no driver, just a tired woman with a mop and a soft voice. That day, Mrs. Adesuwa, now Mama Grace, began to watch. She watched how people treated her. She listened. She smiled when people were kind and stayed quiet when they were not. Some workers laughed at her, some shouted, some dropped things and told her to pick them up. But one girl was different. A young woman with bright eyes and a gentle smile. Her name was Amara. She helped Mama Grace carry her bucket. She gave her water. She called her Ma and said, "Thank you." Mama Grace watched her carefully. Something about her heart felt good. She did not know yet, but she felt hope growing again. This was only the beginning of her plan. She had taken the first step. She had become a cleaner to find love, not for herself, but for the son she loved more than anything in the world. Mama Grace woke up early the next morning before the sun came out. But of course her real name was still Mrs. Adesuwa Bello. She was only pretending to be Mama Grace so she could go to her son's company and find a good woman who would love him, not for his money, but for his heart. She looked in the mirror and saw herself in the small room she was now using for her plan. It was nothing like her big, shiny house. The small room had one bed, one old table, and a fan that made funny sounds when it turned. There was no marble floor here, no big curtains or golden chairs, but Mama Grace smiled. This was the life of many people in the city, and she had chosen it on purpose. She wanted to see the world with new eyes. She opened her small black bag and brought out her uniform. It was a blue cleaner's dress with white buttons, and it had a little tear on one side. She had 2 pairs of yellow gloves, 1 white cloth, and an old scarf for her head. She looked at the scarf for a long time. This was not the kind of thing she used to wear. In her real life, her headscarves were made of silk and cost so much money. But this one was plain and simple. She tied it carefully and then stood up. Her shoes were flat and strong, made for walking and standing, not the pretty shoes she used to wear to church or weddings. Mama Grace looked at herself again and said quietly, "This is who I am now." Then she picked up her mop and bucket and walked to the bus stop. At the bus stop, many people stood waiting. Some were yawning, some looked sleepy. Some were holding their lunch in plastic bowls. Nobody knew she was the mother of the rich man who owned one of the biggest companies in the country. She stood like everyone else. When the bus came, she climbed in. The bus was old. The seats were torn. The driver played loud music. The people sat close together. It was nothing like the private car she used to ride with her driver. But Mama Grace stayed quiet. She held her bucket and looked out the window. The sun was rising now. It painted the sky in soft orange and pink. She smiled. She was ready for whatever the day would bring. When she got to the building, the big glass doors opened, and the smell of strong perfume and coffee filled the air. People in fancy clothes walked past her without looking. They wore shiny shoes, tight skirts, high heels, and strong colognes. Some laughed loudly. Some typed fast on their phones. Mama Grace walked slowly to the cleaner's room and placed her things in a small locker. Then she started cleaning. Her job was to mop the hallway on the 2nd floor and clean the ladies' toilet near the back office. As she moved with her mop and cloth, she listened. She saw how people treated her. Some said nothing. Some walked past her as if she was part of the wall. Others rolled their eyes when she came close. One woman dropped her paper and pointed at it without saying a word. Mama Grace bent down and picked it up. She did not talk back. She just cleaned and watched. Then on her second day, she met her again, the girl with the kind eyes, the one who helped to carry her bucket before. Her name was Amara. Amara was wearing a long yellow skirt and a soft blue shirt. Her hair was tied back in a bun. She looked neat and simple. She smiled at Mama Grace again and said, "Good morning, Ma." Mama Grace looked at her and nodded. "Good morning, my dear." Amara was walking fast, but she stopped. "Do you want me to help you carry that upstairs?" she asked, pointing at the mop bucket. "It looks heavy." Mama Grace was surprised. Most people did not even see her, let alone ask to help. "No, thank you, my child. I can carry it," she said. Amara nodded and smiled. Then she walked away. But that little moment stayed in Mama Grace's heart all day. As she wiped the windows and cleaned the toilet, she kept thinking about Amara. Why was she so different? She did not have a big job. She was just an intern. But her heart was soft. Her voice was gentle. And she did not laugh at the cleaner or look down on her. That made Mama Grace feel warm inside. Days passed. Mama Grace came every morning with her mop and bucket. She always wore her blue uniform, yellow gloves, and scarf. And every day she saw Amara doing small, kind things. One day she helped another cleaner who had dropped his supplies. Another time, she gave her seat to the receptionist during lunch. Amara smiled easily. She worked hard. She did not wear expensive clothes, but she always looked clean and bright. Mama Grace started asking small questions. She asked one of the other cleaners, "That girl with the blue shirt, the one who helped me, who is she?" The cleaner, a man named Kunal, shrugged. "Oh, that one? She's new, an intern. Came from Enugu, I think. She doesn't talk much, but she's always nice. Too nice sometimes." Mama Grace nodded. She wanted to know more, but she had to be careful. She could not show too much interest. She was still just a cleaner. She had to act like one. One afternoon, after most people had left, Mama Grace was still cleaning the hallway. She heard a voice behind her. "Mama Grace, are you okay?" She turned and saw Amara. "Yes, my dear, I'm just finishing here," she said. Amara looked at her and said, "Come, let me help you carry your bucket down. The stairs are long and you look tired." Mama Grace smiled. "You are very kind. Thank you." As they walked down the stairs together, Amara said, "My mother always told me that kindness is free. We may not have money, but we can have manners." Mama Grace looked at her closely. "Your mother is a wise woman." Amara nodded. "She sells vegetables in Enugu. I miss her sometimes. But I came here to work hard and help my younger sister go to school." Mama Grace wanted to ask more, but she kept quiet. She did not want to scare her or seem too curious. But her heart was beating faster. This girl, this Amara. She was strong. She was humble. She was trying her best, even with little. That night, Mama Grace sat on her small bed and looked at the white cloth she used to clean the floor. She folded it neatly and placed it beside her. She thought of all the people she had met in the office, the loud ones, the rude ones, the proud ones. But only one face stayed in her mind, Amara's. There was still more to see and more to learn. But something in her heart was telling her she might be close to what she was looking for. A flower does not shout to be seen, Mama Grace thought. It just blooms quietly. And maybe, just maybe, Amara was that flower. And this was only the beginning. The days went by, and Mama Grace kept working in the big office building. Every morning, she wore her blue uniform, her yellow gloves, her old scarf, and her strong black shoes. She carried her mop, her bucket, and her cleaning cloth. Nobody knew that she was really Mrs. Adesuwa Bello, the mother of the rich man who owned the company. She was still pretending to be a cleaner because she wanted to watch and learn. She was looking for one thing, a girl with a good heart. Someone who would be kind and true, someone who could love her son Daniel, not because of his money, but because of who he was inside. And each day, as she cleaned the shiny floors and wiped the windows and took out the trash, she kept noticing one girl, Amara. Amara was an intern. That meant she was still learning and not being paid much money. But she always came to work early. She always smiled. She always worked hard. And most of all, she always treated Mama Grace with respect. She greeted her kindly every morning. She said thank you when Mama Grace cleaned her desk area, and sometimes she even gave her snacks or water. Most of the other workers did not act this way. They walked past Mama Grace like she was invisible. Some of them made fun of her. Some left dirty tissues on the floor without saying sorry. Some even rolled their eyes when she came close. But Amara was never like that. She made Mama Grace feel like a real person. One morning, Mama Grace saw Amara sitting alone in the break room during lunch. Everyone else had gone out to buy food, but Amara had brought her own small lunch. She opened a little food flask and began to eat rice with the pepper sauce and one small piece of meat. Mama Grace walked in quietly and began to sweep. Amara looked up and smiled. "Mama Grace," she said, "come and sit down. You look tired." Mama Grace smiled back. "No, my child, I'm okay. I'll just finish here." But Amara shook her head. "Please sit. You've been working all morning." Mama Grace sat on a nearby chair. Amara looked at her and said, "Did you bring lunch today?" Mama Grace shook her head. "No, I was too busy this morning." Amara opened her food flask and moved the rice to one side. "Here," she said, scooping some of her food into a small paper bowl. "You can have this. I can't finish it all anyway." Mama Grace looked at the food, then at Amara. Her eyes became warm. Nobody had shared food with her in a long time, not since she became Mama Grace the cleaner. "Thank you," she said softly. "You are very kind." "It's nothing," Amara said. "My mother says we should never eat alone when someone else is hungry." Mama Grace took a spoon and ate the rice slowly. It tasted good, simple but full of love. After lunch, they went back to their work. But Mama Grace could not stop thinking about what had just happened. This girl, this young woman with so little, still found a way to give. That evening, when most people had gone home, Mama Grace was still on the second floor cleaning. She was about to pack her things when she heard soft music from the far end of the hallway. She walked slowly toward the sound. It was coming from one of the empty rooms. The door was half open. She peeked in. Inside, she saw Amara sitting alone at her desk, working late. The lights were dim, and her phone was playing music quietly. She looked tired. Mama Grace stepped back and turned around to go. But just as she turned, she noticed something on the floor, a pair of flat brown shoes near Amara's bag. Mama Grace looked closer. The shoes were old and torn. One of them had a big crack at the front, and the other had tape holding the side together. Just then, Amara bent down, took the shoes, and brought out a small tube of glue from her bag. She looked around to make sure no one was watching, then carefully added glue to the broken parts of the shoes. She held them together tightly and sighed. Mama Grace stood very still. She felt something deep in her chest. Amara was trying so hard, and she had no money for new shoes. Yet every day, she still came to work smiling, still helped others, still shared food. Mama Grace turned away quietly and went back downstairs. She sat on a bench near the cleaner's room and thought for a long time. "This girl," she whispered to herself, "she is suffering, but she is not bitter. She is poor, but she is rich in heart." That night, Mama Grace could not sleep. She lay on her small bed in the quiet room she had rented for her secret plan. She looked up at the ceiling and thought about all the women her son Daniel had met. They wore expensive perfume. They carried shiny handbags. They said sweet things, but their eyes always looked at his car, his watch, his house. Not his heart, not his soul. But Amara was different. She had nothing, not even good shoes. Yet she gave food to a cleaner. She spoke kindly. She worked hard. Mama Grace knew that people like Amara were very rare. And now she was even more sure. She had to learn more about her. The next morning, she went to work early. She waited near the main door and watched. Amara walked in wearing the same brown shoes now glued and held together with thread. She smiled at the security man, greeted the cleaner near the lift, and walked upstairs. Mama Grace followed her quietly, cleaning the handrails as she went. She wanted to see more. She wanted to understand. Later that day, Mama Grace asked another cleaner, "Do you know where that girl stays? The intern, Amara?" The woman, who was also called Mama Bisi, said, "She lives near the Adegunli side, I think. I heard her talking on the phone once. She's staying with her younger sister." "Do they have family here?" Mama Grace asked. Mama Bisi shook her head. "No, she said her mother is in the village. They're alone here." Mama Grace thanked her and went back to work. Her heart was full. Amara had no one here, no support, no big family. Yet she was still standing strong, still doing her best. That evening it rained. The city became wet and cold. Water rushed along the gutters and people held plastic bags over their heads. Mama Grace waited near the bus stop with her umbrella. As she waited, she saw Amara across the road. She had no umbrella. She was using a file folder to cover her hair. Her skirt was wet. Her shoes made little splashes as she walked. Mama Grace wanted to call out to her, but she stopped herself. She still had to stay in her role. She had to be just Mama Grace, the cleaner. So she watched Amara walk into a small street and disappear. When Mama Grace got back to her small room, she opened her bag and took out her phone. She looked at Daniel's number. She wanted to call him and say, "My son, I think I found her. I think I found someone special." But she didn't. It was not yet time. She needed to be sure. She needed to wait. So she put the phone down and made a simple dinner of yam and oil. As she ate, she thought of Amara's broken shoes, the way she glued them, the way she smiled through the pain, the way she shared food with a woman she thought was just a cleaner. Mama Grace closed her eyes and whispered, "God, if this is the one, show me more. Let me see her heart again." Then she lay down and went to sleep. The next day, the sun came out bright and hot. The sky was blue and the birds flew over the rooftops. Mama Grace walked into the building as always. She held her mop and bucket, but this time her steps were lighter. Her heart was full of something new, something like hope. She did not know what would happen next, but she knew that Amara was different. And maybe, just maybe, love was closer than she thought. The next morning, Mama Grace woke up early again. She took her blue cleaner's uniform from the hook and put it on slowly. She tied her old scarf and wore her flat shoes. She packed her mop, bucket, gloves, and cloth, just like she had done every day since she started pretending to be a cleaner in her son's big company. But this morning felt different. Her heart was full of quiet thoughts. She was thinking of Amara again. Every day, Amara showed more kindness, more strength, and more beauty from the inside. Mama Grace had never met anyone like her in all her life, not even among her rich friends. Amara had so little, yet gave so much. And Mama Grace had seen the broken shoes, the small lunch, the tired face, the glued soles, but Amara still smiled. She still helped others. She still treated Mama Grace, the cleaner, like someone who mattered. As Mama Grace rode the bus to the office, she held her bag tight on her lap. Her eyes looked out the window, but her mind was somewhere else. She thought about her son Daniel. She remembered the words he had said at the dinner table that night. "Love doesn't exist. Every woman only wants my money." Those words had hurt her. Not just because they were sad, but because she knew they were not true. And now, after watching Amara, she knew it even more. Love did exist. It just had to be found in the right places. And maybe, and just maybe, Daniel had not been looking in the right places. Maybe that's why God had given her this strange idea to take off her gold, wear gloves, and become someone else. Maybe that's why she had become Mama Grace. When she got to the company that morning, she went to the cleaner's room, changed into her yellow gloves, and filled her bucket. She started mopping the second floor as always. People passed her by without looking. Some walked fast and almost spilled coffee. One lady dropped a paper and waited for her to pick it up. Mama Grace said nothing. She just bent down, cleaned, and watched. Around 10 o'clock that morning, a loud voice came from the reception. "Everyone, please stand. The CEO is coming." All the workers looked up from their desks. Some fixed their clothes quickly. Some cleaned their tables and sprayed perfume. Some ran to the mirror to check their faces. Mama Grace stood behind a tall pillar, holding her mop. She knew who the CEO was. It was her son, Daniel Bello. He hardly ever came to the office in person. But today, he was coming. Her heart began to beat fast. She had not seen him in weeks. She had stayed away from him to protect her secret. And now he was coming into the same building while she was dressed like a cleaner. What will I do if he sees me, she thought. Will he know it's me? Will he stop everything? She quickly bent down and acted like she was cleaning the corner of the floor. She turned her face away from the hallway. She kept her eyes down. A few moments later, strong footsteps echoed through the hallway. Daniel had arrived. People clapped and smiled. Some followed him as he walked. He was tall, handsome, and dressed in a fine gray suit. His watch shone on his wrist. His face was serious. He nodded at people, but did not smile. He looked like a man with a strong wall around his heart. Mama Grace peeked a little from the corner of her eye. She saw her son and felt a tear build behind her eyelid. "That's my boy," she whispered inside. "That's the baby I raised." But he did not see her. He walked past without even noticing. Mama Grace stayed in her place until he entered the boardroom. She stood up slowly. Her knees felt weak. She walked to the bathroom to hide. In the bathroom, she looked at her face in the mirror. She looked so different, older, tired. But her eyes were full of love and pain. She sat on the small wooden bench in the cleaner's area and closed her eyes. She wanted to cry, not because her son didn't see her, not because she missed her old clothes or big house, but because she saw how lonely he looked. Even with all his money, Daniel looked like a man with no peace. He didn't smile, he didn't laugh, he didn't even seem happy to be in his own company. Mama Grace knew this was why she had started this journey. It wasn't just to find a girl for Daniel, it was to bring joy back into his life. Later that same day, something strange happened. Mama Grace was mopping the floor near the elevator. Amara was walking quickly with some files in her hand. She didn't see Daniel coming around the corner, and then it happened, she bumped into him. The files flew from her hand. A hot cup of coffee spilled and splashed on Daniel's white shirt. Everyone gasped. The hallway became quiet. Amara froze. Her eyes became wide. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked scared. Daniel looked down at his shirt. The brown coffee stain was big and messy. He looked up at Amara. His face was cold. "What are you doing?" he asked. His voice was sharp. "Can't you see where you're going?" Amara stuttered. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't see you. I didn't mean to. Daniel took a deep breath. He looked at her again. Next time, watch where you're going. This is not a playground. Amara bent down quickly and began picking up the papers. Her hands were shaking. Mama Grace watched everything. Her heart broke. She saw the hurt on Amara's face. She saw the fear in her eyes. Daniel turned and walked away, still frowning. Amara stood up slowly. She wiped her eyes quickly and walked toward the back office. Mama Grace stood still with her mop in hand. She wanted to run after Daniel. She wanted to say, "She didn't mean it. Don't speak to her like that." But she couldn't. Not yet. She had to stay in her role. So she followed Amara slowly and found her sitting in a corner room, alone. She was pressing her files neatly and trying not to cry. Mama Grace knocked gently and walked in. "My child," she said softly. "Are you okay?" Amara looked up and wiped her eyes. "Yes, Mama Grace. I'm fine. I was careless. It was my fault." Mama Grace sat beside her. "It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. Don't let it make you sad." Amara nodded. "I just didn't expect it. I've never seen him before. I didn't even know it was the CEO. I thought it was another staff." Mama Grace said nothing more. She placed her hand on Amara's shoulder and gave it a soft squeeze. Then she stood and walked out. But inside, her heart was not calm. Her son had spoken harshly to the very girl she believed could change his life. The very girl who had shown love and kindness every day. He doesn't know, she thought. He doesn't see her heart yet. He only saw a mistake. That evening, when Mama Grace got back to her small room, she sat on her bed and let the tears fall. She did not stop them this time. She cried for her son. She cried for Amara. She cried for all the pain in their hearts. She prayed in a soft voice. "God, I am trying. Please help me. Show my son the truth. Let him see what I see." Then she wiped her tears, ate a small dinner of bread and tea, and went to bed. But even as she closed her eyes, her mind was still full of thoughts. What would happen next? Would Daniel remember Amara's face? Would he care? Would he see beyond a spilled cup of coffee? Mama Grace didn't know. But she had come too far to stop now. She had seen Amara's heart. Now she just needed Daniel to see it too. The story was not finished yet. The next morning, Mama Grace woke up and sat on the edge of her bed. Her back was sore and her eyes were still heavy. She had cried the night before and her heart still felt soft and tired. But she got up slowly and started her morning. She folded her blanket, put on her old blue cleaner's uniform, tied her scarf around her head, and wore her yellow gloves. Then she picked up her mop, her bucket, and her small cloth. She looked in the mirror and said softly, "Today will be better." She walked outside and took the bus and rode through the busy streets of the city. People were rushing to work. Some were selling bread and water on the road. The air was dusty. The sky was still waking up. When she reached the company, she went to the cleaner's room, filled her bucket, and went upstairs. She thought about Amara. She had not seen her since the coffee accident the day before. Mama Grace hoped she was okay. She hoped Amara had slept and had not cried too much. When Mama Grace walked into the hallway, she saw Amara walking slowly to her desk. Her eyes looked tired, but she still had her same soft smile. Her brown shoes were glued again. Her yellow skirt was clean and ironed. She carried a bag that looked heavy, but still, she walked with quiet strength. Mama Grace walked to her and said, "Good morning, my child." Amara turned and smiled. "Good morning, Mama Grace." "How are you today?" Mama Grace asked. "I'm okay," Amara said, nodding. "Yesterday was a bit hard, but I'm fine." Mama Grace looked at her closely. "You're strong." Amara laughed a little. "I have to be. I have no choice." Mama Grace nodded and walked away to begin cleaning. As she cleaned, her mind was thinking of something new. What if I visit her home, she thought. What if I see how she lives? She wanted to know more. She wanted to see how Amara was living, how she survived, and how she treated people outside of work. So that evening, after work, she followed Amara from a distance. She stayed far enough behind so Amara would not see her. She watched her walk through the streets. Amara passed shops and small houses. She stopped at a market and bought tomatoes and onions. She counted her money very carefully before paying. Then she walked into a small, dusty street. There were many houses there, all packed close together. Some had clothes hanging outside. Children played in the sand. There were no big gates or tall buildings here. Amara walked into one of the small houses at the end of the street. The door was old. The windows had no glass, only cloth. Mama Grace stood by a corner wall and watched quietly. She felt her eyes become warm again. "So this is where she lives," she whispered. "This is where that sweet girl goes after a long day of work." She wanted to walk away, but something made her stay. She waited a little while. Then she walked to the front of the house and knocked. Amara opened the door. She looked surprised. "Mama Grace?" she asked. "How did you—" Mama Grace smiled and said, "I was passing and saw you. I just wanted to greet you." Amara laughed. "Passing here? This place is far from the office." "Yes," Mama Grace said. "But I walk sometimes. May I come in?" "Of course," Amara said, stepping aside. The room was small. There was one bed in the corner, one table, 2 chairs, and a small cooking pot on the floor. A young girl, about 15 years old, sat on the bed doing homework. "This is my younger sister, Ada," Amara said. "Ada, greet Mama Grace. She works with me." Ada smiled and waved. "Good evening, Ma." "Good evening, my dear," Mama Grace said with a smile. Amara brought a chair for her to sit. "We don't have much, but you are welcome." "Thank you," Mama Grace said. She looked around the room. It was simple but clean. The floor had no tiles, but it was swept. The walls had no paint, but they had neat writing on paper. "You keep your home very well," Mama Grace said. "It's small, but it has peace." Amara smiled. "We try. Life is not easy, but we are thankful." "Where are your parents?" Mama Grace asked gently. Amara looked down. "My father died 3 years ago. He was sick. My mother is in Enugu. She sells vegetables at the market. We could not all stay together, so I came here to work. I send money to her when I can. I also take care of Ada." Mama Grace listened with care. "You are a good sister and a good daughter." Amara smiled again. "I just do my best." Mama Grace stood. "I must go now. I just wanted to see you and greet you." "Thank you for coming," Amara said. "It means a lot." Mama Grace left the house and walked slowly back to her room. The sky was getting dark. The stars were coming out. She felt something deep in her chest. Not sadness, but something strong and quiet. It was love. Not the kind between man and woman, but the kind a mother feels when she sees someone who could change her child's life. She sat on her bed and looked at the small bag she brought every day. Then she opened a small drawer. Inside was some money, not much, but enough. She took out a few notes and placed them in an envelope. She wrote on it, "From a friend, for your light." The next morning she reached the office before Amara. She placed the envelope in Amara's drawer where she kept her pens and notebooks. Then she left quickly and went to mop the floor. Later she watched as Amara opened the drawer, found the envelope, and looked around in surprise. She opened it slowly, saw the money, and held the note in her hand. She looked around again. "Who did this?" she asked softly. No one answered. But Mama Grace watched from behind a pillar. Amara smiled and put the envelope in her bag. She did not tell anyone. She just looked up at the ceiling and whispered, "Thank you." That evening, Mama Grace stayed behind at the office. She was cleaning the hallway when Amara passed by. She stopped and said, "Mama Grace, someone left something for me. I don't know who, but I needed it so much." "That's wonderful," Mama Grace said. "Maybe it was from God." Amara nodded. "Maybe. I believe so. He always helps me." She paused. "You know, Mama Grace, you remind me of my mother. Kind, quiet, strong." Mama Grace smiled. Her eyes were wet, but she blinked fast. "Thank you, my child. That means so much." That night, Mama Grace sat in her small room and held her phone. She almost called Daniel, but she didn't. Not yet. She was getting closer to something special. She just needed to wait a little longer and keep watching the girl with the broken shoes and the golden heart. The next morning, Mama Grace woke up with a happy heart. The sky was bright and the birds were singing. She felt like something good was coming. She had now spent many weeks working as a cleaner in her son Daniel's big company. Nobody knew she was his mother. They only saw an old woman with a mop and a bucket. But Mama Grace had a plan. She was looking for a girl who had a kind heart, a girl who would treat a cleaner with respect, a girl who could love her son for who he was, not for his money. And now she believed she had found that girl. Her name was Amara. Amara was an intern in the office. She had no big salary. She lived in a small house with her younger sister. Her shoes were broken, but her heart was full of light. Amara was kind to everyone. She had shared food, given help, smiled through pain, and never treated Mama Grace like a nobody. Mama Grace had visited her home, left her a gift in secret, and watched her pray and work and love quietly. Yes, Mama Grace said to herself as she tied her scarf that morning, Amara is the one. She picked up her mop and bucket and took the bus to work. She felt strong. She felt ready. But something strange happened that day. Something that broke her heart. When she reached the cleaner's room, two women were standing there, whispering. One of them looked at Mama Grace and said, Did you hear what happened?" "No," Mama Grace said. "What is it?" "HR's wristwatch is missing," the other woman said. "It's a gold watch, very expensive. They say it was on her table this morning, now it's gone." "They say it's a cleaner who took it," the first woman added. "A new one." Mama Grace's eyes opened wide. "What? A cleaner?" The second woman nodded. "Yes. Security is checking everyone." Mama Grace felt her chest tighten. She knew she had done nothing wrong, but her heart was beating fast. She had seen these things before. When something went missing, people always looked at the poor, always blamed the quiet ones. Later that morning, Mama Grace was mopping near the kitchen area when two security men came up to her. "Come with us," one of them said. "We need to check your bag." Mama Grace looked up. "Why? What did I do?" "Just come," the second one said. "Don't make noise." People began to look. Some stood up from their desks. Some whispered. Some pointed. The HR manager walked out of her office with a sad face. "Her," she said, pointing. "She's the one who cleaned my office today." Mama Grace felt cold all over her body. "I didn't take anything," she said quietly. "I only cleaned." "Let's check her locker," one man said. They pulled Mama Grace along the hallway. Her mop fell to the floor. Her bucket rolled away. People were now standing everywhere, watching, laughing, taking pictures. They opened Mama Grace's small locker in the cleaner's room. It had only her scarf, a wrapper, and her old bag. The security man searched it. Nothing. Then they turned to her. "Open your pocket," one said. Mama Grace opened her pockets, empty. "She must have hidden it somewhere else," the other one said. "Maybe she threw away." "I didn't steal anything," Mama Grace said again. Her voice was shaking now. I've never stolen in my life. The HR manager crossed her arms. That's what thieves always say. And then a loud voice came from the hallway. What's going on here? Everyone turned. It was Daniel, the CEO, the owner of the company, Mama Grace's son. Daniel walked in with two managers behind him. Why is there noise? He asked. One of the security men said, Sir, the HR manager's gold watch is missing. She believes this cleaner took it. Daniel looked at Mama Grace. She stood quietly in her uniform, her headscarf loose, her face full of shame. She did not look up. Did you take it? Daniel asked. Mama Grace could not speak. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She felt like the floor would swallow her. And then someone ran forward. She didn't do it! It was Amara. She pushed through the crowd and stood in front of Mama Grace. She didn't take anything. Daniel frowned. And how do you know that? Because I know her, Amara said, her voice strong. She is kind. She is honest. She helped me when I had nothing. She shared her time with me. She has never stolen anything. Are you sure? Daniel asked. Amara nodded. I would bet my job on it. The room went quiet. Everyone was watching. Then a young man from the tech room stepped forward. Sir, I think we should check the cameras, he said. There's one in HR's office, right above the door. Daniel nodded. Good. Let's check. They all walked to the camera room. The footage was open. They watched the video from the morning. They saw HR walk into her office and place her gold watch on the table. Later, they saw Mama Grace walk in with her mop and bucket. She cleaned the table, wiped the floor, and left. She touched nothing else. But then, 5 minutes later, someone else walked in. A different worker. Not a cleaner. A lady in a black dress. She walked in quickly, looked around, picked up the watch, and put it in her bag. Then she walked out. Everyone gasped. The HR manager covered her mouth. Oh no, she said. It wasn't her. Daniel looked at the security men. You dragged this woman in front of the whole office for nothing. He turned to Mama Grace. I'm sorry. But Mama Grace still didn't speak. She just looked at him. Her eyes were full now. She reached for her scarf and slowly pulled it off her head. Her white hair fell down gently. She looked at Daniel straight in the face. Daniel, she said softly. Daniel stepped back. His eyes opened wide. Mom? The room went silent. Everyone froze. Mom? Daniel said again. What are you doing here? Mama Grace took a deep breath. I came here to find the one thing you said didn't exist. Love? Daniel asked. Yes, Mama Grace said. I came to find someone who would love you for you. Not for your name, not for your house. Someone who could look at a cleaner and still see a person. Daniel looked around the room. Everyone was quiet. He looked at Amara. She was standing still, her hands shaking. Then he looked at his mother again. You've been here all this time? Yes, Mama Grace said. I watched you. I watched them. I saw how they treated me. And I saw how she treated me. She pointed at Amara. She gave me food. She helped me carry my bucket. She called me Ma when others laughed. And when you shouted at her, she still forgave you. Daniel looked down. Mom, No, Mama Grace said. Let me finish. She stepped closer. You said love doesn't exist. That all women want your money. But you never looked in the right place. You looked at the ones who wore diamonds. But you didn't look at the one who glued her shoes just to come to work. Daniel closed his eyes. He looked ashamed. I didn't know. Now you do, Mama Grace said. Now it's your turn to open your eyes. She turned to leave. I've done my part. And with that, she walked out of the room. The cleaner's scarf still in her hand, the mop and bucket left behind. Daniel stood very still after his mother walked out of the room. Everyone in the office was quiet. The cleaners looked shocked. The workers whispered to one another. Amara stood frozen, her hands still shaking. Daniel felt like the whole world had stopped moving. He had just found out that the woman who had been mopping the floors and cleaning the toilets was not just a cleaner. She was his own mother. His mother had dressed like someone poor and had worked in his company, all to find something, he said. He no longer believed in love. Real love. True love. Not love for his money, but love for who he was. And now she had left him with the truth. She had pointed at Amara, the same girl he had once shouted at for spilling coffee, and said, "She is the one." Daniel felt heat rise to his face. He felt embarrassed. He also felt sad. Sad because he knew his mother had done everything out of love for him. And sad because he had been blind to something so good. He looked at Amara. She was looking down at her shoes. Her hands were by her side. She looked like she wanted to disappear. Daniel took a deep breath. "Everyone, please go back to work," he said. "Now." The workers turned slowly and began to walk away. Security guards left. The HR manager walked out quietly. Soon it was just Daniel and Amara in the hallway. Daniel walked up to her. "Amara," he said softly. She looked up. Her eyes were wet. "Yes, sir," she said. "Please, don't call me sir right now," Daniel said. "I just want to talk to you, not as your boss, just as a man who has made a mistake." Amara didn't speak. She just stood and waited. Daniel looked nervous. "I didn't know," he said. "I didn't know who she was. I didn't know what she was doing. I didn't know what you had done for her." Amara finally spoke. "I didn't do anything special," she said. "I was just being myself. And that's what makes it special," Daniel said. "You didn't do it for reward. You didn't do it because you thought anyone was watching. You were just kind." Amara looked away. "I didn't want you to think I was trying to impress anyone. I never even knew who she was. I just liked her. She reminded me of my mother." Daniel smiled a little. "She said the same about you." They stood in silence for a few moments. Then Daniel said, "Will you have lunch with me today?" Amara's eyes widened. "What?" "Lunch," Daniel said. "Just lunch. I'd like to say thank you, properly, for everything." Amara was quiet. Then she nodded. "Okay." Later that day, Daniel picked her up in a small black car. No bodyguards, no driver. He didn't wear a suit, just a simple shirt and jeans. Amara wore her usual yellow skirt and a clean white blouse. Her shoes were still the same ones, glued and patched, but she walked with her head held high. Daniel took her to a small restaurant. Not a fancy place. It was the same place his mother had once eaten with him when he was a boy. They sat by the window and ate olive rice and fried plantain. No one bothered them. Daniel asked her questions about her life, her mother, her sister, her dreams. Amara spoke slowly. She didn't try to sound smart. She didn't talk about money or big plans. She talked about helping her family, building a small charity for poor children, and one day becoming a teacher. Daniel listened closely. He felt something strange in his chest, something warm, something soft. She's real, he thought. She's not like the others. After lunch, he drove her home. When she stepped out of the car, she turned and said, "Thank you for lunch." "Thank you for saying yes," Daniel replied. She smiled. Then she walked into her small house. Daniel watched her go. That night, Mama Grace was sitting at home when she heard a knock. She opened the door and saw Daniel. He looked like a boy again. "Mom," he said, "can I come in?" She nodded and let him in. He sat on the edge of the bed. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything." Mama Grace held his hand. "You saw her now?" "Yes," he said. "She's amazing, and I almost missed her." "But you didn't," Mama Grace said. "You opened your eyes. That's what matters." Daniel looked at his mother. "You did all of this for me?" "Yes," she said. "Because I love you. And I wanted you to find someone who would love you too, the real you." Daniel hugged her for a long time. "Thank you, Mom," he whispered. "Thank you for being my cleaner." Mama Grace laughed. "Now I can finally wash my hands of that mop." They both laughed. From that day on, Daniel and Amara became friends, real friends. He didn't rush her. He didn't show off his money. He just spent time with her, walking, talking, listening. He visited her home. He met her sister. He sat on the floor and ate amala with her. Slowly, something beautiful began to grow. It was not fast. It was not loud. But it was real. And one day he held her hand and said, "I know now what love feels like." Amara smiled and said, "So do I." And far away, Mama Grace sat in her chair, watching the sun go down with a smile on her face. Her plan had worked. Love had bloomed, not in gold, not in cars, but in kindness, in truth, in quiet moments. And it was the kind of love that needed no brand, just a heart. Time passed. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. Daniel and Amara were now more than just friends. They spent a lot of time together. They talked, they laughed, and they shared many quiet moments that felt warm and full of peace. Daniel no longer wore his fancy suits all the time. He started dressing simple. He no longer wanted to show off or talk about money. He just wanted to be seen as Daniel, not the rich man, not the CEO, just Daniel the person. Amara loved that. She never once asked him for anything. She didn't care about his car or his house or his name. What she cared about was how he spoke to her, how he listened, and how he made her feel. She smiled more now. Her shoes were still the same, but Daniel didn't say anything about them. One day she found a small box near her door. Inside the box was a brand new pair of strong brown shoes, very simple, but very nice. There was no name on the box, but Amara knew who sent it. She smiled and wore them the next day. Daniel said nothing, but when he saw her walk in, his smile grew bigger. Mama Grace watched all this from the side. She no longer wore her cleaner's uniform. She had gone back to her own life, but not all of it. She still came to the office sometimes, not to clean, but to check. Everyone now treated her with great respect. The workers were shocked when they found out who she really was. The same woman they ignored, laughed at, and accused of stealing, she was the mother of the man who paid their salaries. They learned a big lesson from that. Some said sorry. Some still looked away in shame. But Mama Grace had already moved on. She was not angry. She had done what she came to do. She had worn the gloves. She had pushed the mop. She had seen the truth. And now her heart was full. Daniel had changed. He smiled more now. He laughed. He visited her often. He listened when she spoke. The wall around his heart was gone. One evening he came to her house with a quiet look in his eyes. "Mom," he said. "Yes, my son," she answered. "I want to ask her to marry me." Mama Grace smiled. Her eyes became wet. "Then ask her. Don't wait." "I want to do it the right way," he said. "No cameras, no big crowd. Just something small, something true." Mama Grace nodded. "That's the best way." So Daniel planned it. He picked a small restaurant. It was the same one where they had eaten together the first time. He chose the same table by the window. He asked the waiter to bring 2 plates of jollof rice and fried plantain. And when Amara sat down, he held her hand and said, "Amara, I have seen many people. I have known many names, but no one has touched my life the way you have. I don't want to spend one more day without knowing you will be with me always. Will you marry me?" Amara was quiet. Then she smiled. "Yeah," she said. "Yes, I will." Daniel was so happy he couldn't speak. He just hugged her. The whole restaurant clapped. That night, when they told Mama Grace, she hugged them both. Then she went to her room and opened a wooden box. Inside was a white cloth, old but clean. It was the same cloth she had used to clean the floors in the office. She folded it neatly and tied a red ribbon around it. On the day of the wedding, she gave it to Amara. "What is this?" Amara asked. "It's the cloth I used as a cleaner," Mama Grace said. "Why are you giving it to me?" Amara asked softly. Mama Grace smiled. "Because this cloth helped me find you. I want you to keep it. Not because it is clean, but because it reminds us that love begins where pride ends." Amara held it close. "Thank you, Mama." The wedding was small and simple. There were flowers, food, and music. Amara wore a lovely white dress. Daniel wore a clean black suit. They looked happy, truly happy. There was no gold crown, no diamonds, but there was love. Pure and honest love. Mama Grace sat in the front row. She looked at the couple and smiled. Her heart was full. She had swept the floor with her own hands. She had worn old shoes and rubber gloves. She had faced shame and false words. But in the end, she had found what she was looking for. Not for herself, but for her son. She had swept not just the floor, but the path to something beautiful. She was the woman who swept for love, and that love now stood in front of her, smiling, hand in hand, ready to begin a new life. As the music played and the guests cheered, Mama Grace looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you." Because in the end, love had won,